Welcome to this week's Lunch and Learn. We have information and insight to help you manage your career. So today, we're going to look at how AI-savvy corporations are changing the way potential job applicants are identified for the best and often unpublished positions, and then the knowledge explosion, a phenomenon that's occurring, and how this tectonic development will offer up incredible benefits to society, but at what cost to workers in seemingly unrelated job classifications. So this is what we're going to do today. We hope you will find it beneficial. The whole program with some downloadable documents and other information will be available on our website probably tomorrow afternoon, later after about 3 o'clock. That's at johngself.com. You can get access to it by going to our homepage, johngself.com, clicking the red button on the right side, and that'll take you to our course page. This information will be in a course format, but it will be free. And finally today, we will also have our answers, question and answers. So first, let's talk about the expanding role of the job explosion and how that's really dramatically affecting the job markets. It's the technology that is going to be so beneficial, but it will cause you to rethink how you manage your brand. At least 70%, if not 80% of jobs are not published, according to Matt Youngquist, president of Career Horizons. So that's what he said in an NPR interview. And yet 80% of the job seekers seem to be content to surf the web in search of that next better position. Now let's add proactive electronic sourcing to the mix. And the result is that the way people look for jobs, from supervisors to senior executives, is changing. Now, I believe this change is going to require a reset in how you do your job search strategy. Proactive electronic sourcing is a generic term for next generation recruiting. I have seen so many different changes in my 27-year career, but this is probably one of the most dynamic and game-changing developments because it's changing how we source candidates. So we have a big knowledge explosion, but here we have a technology change that will dramatically affect job search. I think today automation has focused primarily on screening resumes that are submitted online. Now, in case you have not been paying attention because you have not had to look for a job in forever, these applicant tracking systems, also known as ATS, and some people call them applicant tossing systems, scan resumes submitted online using algorithms that are based on job categories and job-specific requirements. So today, your first interview, which is the role that your resume plays, is in all likelihood read by a computer, powered by job-specific computer code. It is your first interview, but you will not be there, nor will the prospective employer, only the ATS scanner. In a line from the 1960s police procedural television hit Dragnet, the star character, a Sergeant Joe Friday, frequently would interrupt a shaken crime victim who was trying to provide context and explain what happened. And Friday, who was very professional and very matter-of-fact, would offer a curt response, "Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts, sir." Well, in essence, that's what ATS scanners are doing, looking for just the facts, the relevant facts, the specific information from the online job posting without any human bias. It is focused, it is cold and calculating, and it is not always right, but it is what companies rely on to make the initial choices of who will advance in the next search. Now, there's been some chatter and conversation lately. One of these systems apparently was compromised, and some hackers got in and got information, and there was great joy and rejoicing on the internet that would spell the end for applicant tracking systems and automation. I don't know what those people are smoking, probably something they bought legally in Colorado, but this is not going to ever change. They will make improvements, security will get better, but the role of electronic machine automation and AI will continue to dominate the job search market. You can go to the bank on that. Now, it's more efficient, it eliminates bias, but as I said, it's not, even improved versions will make mistakes. Humans make mistakes. But under the current system, 80% of all the resumes submitted for a particular job will never be seen by a human. And that is something you need to stop and you need to think about. Because if you don't really focus on these new rules and think in cold start terms, what can this mean to your job search? Well, if you don't strictly adhere to the new resume rules, you will experience, I think, more crushing rejection than you can imagine. And I run into that all the time when people call me and they say, I've submitted literally dozens and dozens of resumes and never got a call. And generally when we start talking, they tell me they're sending the same resume for every job. Listen, the algorithms are job specific. If you're not matching up with what they're looking for, if the computer is not reading that, you won't get a phone call, you won't get picked. Now, the only way you can reintroduce this so-called human touch to the process is if you have a strategic career network with a contact who knows someone in that company and who can and will make a personal introduction and providing you a copy of their resume and a glowing recommendation. Now, even then, your match with the job selection criteria should be greater than 97% if you hope to be considered. Your odds for success is submitting online without an introduction are a dismal 150 to 1. Now, with the help of a contact and a referral, your odds improve only to 16 to 1. So your match with the selection criteria is critical. Okay, now that's the dark side of how today's talent acquisition process works, and it's the frustrating side. The door is closed, but unless you have an interesting knock, a customized resume, one that spells out your value for exactly what the employer is seeking, you will not get in. You've got to have an interesting knock. That means a customized resume, and your resume must reflect your value, and you must address what they're looking for. Now, let me talk to you a bit about how this technology is changing the equation somewhat. Now, here, the door may be closed if you don't want to follow the new resume rules. Okay, that's an absolute. But here's where the window of opportunity opens for those who are willing to invest the time to build their social media presence and enhance their career brand. Now, 10 years ago, as I'd interview executives, I would always look at their LinkedIn brand. And I saw a myriad of interesting things. One guy had his picture was a sunset. And my first thought is, what is he telling me about where he is with his career? I've seen multiple people with their dogs, their girlfriends on the beach, all manner of social things, which is not necessarily the brand image that you want to put forward. And then some people create a profile and then never update it. And that too is a huge mistake. Eileen Brown, writing for CDNet, reported in a survey of about 1,000 executives and managers conducted by the Resume Lab that 45% reported having outdated information on their LinkedIn profiles. So 45% of 1,000 executives said our profiles on LinkedIn aren't up to date. They don't have the best information. They don't define our value. Now, link that survey result with the fact that 70 to 80% of all jobs are never posted online. And to make things more interesting for you and to set the table, so to speak, think about this. 95% of corporate recruiters reported that they are on LinkedIn every week looking for qualified applicants for the good jobs that are unpublished. Now, do you see your opportunity? But the computer algorithms are still in play. Soon it will be common practice that recruiters will not have to spend their time with the mind-numbing work of looking at profiles. And in an executive search role, I may only look at 20 or 30, but let me tell you something. At the 29th profile, you're ready for a root canal without xylocaine. It really is mind-numbing work. And So especially when you know you're looking at profiles, some of which are out of date. Now, ATS systems, the applicant tracking systems, are being expanded to do that work for the recruiters. It's going to have the capability of scanning thousands of profiles in a matter of minutes using the job category specific algorithms to identify potential applicants. In other words, there are two types of applicants. They're the active applicants that are outsourcing and looking for jobs, and then they're the passive applicants who really aren't looking for a job but would be open if a recruiter called them. Well, they're hard to find sometimes, and now technology is upending that paradigm as well. So those same machines now will be able to go out, source your profiles in LinkedIn primarily, but other social profiles as they emerge, and be able to tell by the information you have. This is why having updated information is so important. This is why having your value firmly defined is so important. It's going to be able to scan your resume, your application, your profile, and determine, is this somebody we want to talk to? Now, if you are one of the hundreds of people that they say potentially you're a potential applicant, you will receive an automated message to these you'll receive an automated message asking if you might be interested in the job. Now, if you're one of the chosen, you will be hard pressed to identify whether this nice, engaging message, usually within the LinkedIn mail system, comes directly from a recruiter. Now, this message may have their picture or profile link, but you won't know that it probably came from a machine, even though it looks like a personalized email. If you respond with interest, that will trigger a host of other automated responses, including a request for a copy of your resume. Okay, now remember, just because they reached out to you doesn't mean that you can just whip out that generic resume and send it in, because you'll probably get kicked out immediately because they're going to use a scanner more than likely. It's just a way to pull in more targeted resumes to an online submission. That's what it is. But you get a feeling that this is very customized and they're recruiting you. And they are, along with hundreds of other people for the same job. Keep in mind, the odds are 150 to 1, and this is just going to maybe even make it a little bit worse, but it's going to happen. So you want to submit a customized resume that addresses the job keywords and phrases. Now, if they like your resume, that will ultimately lead to a telephone call with, believe it or not, a live human being, or a member, a recruiter or a member of the research team. Now, at that point, the computer and the ATS automation are no longer involved. They're going to be involved in the initial scanning, candidate research, sourcing, and the initial resume screening. And they're still going to get it down to about 20 applicants, and then the recruiter may choose which 10 they're going to focus on. And in the end, you'll probably look at 3 to 5 candidates that they interview in depth or invite for an on-site interview. Now, if you get one of these messages and you're not interested and you decline, they're going to drop you and you won't see any further follow-up. Now, let's talk about what this means if you're not spot-on qualified for the job. If you're spot-on qualified for the job, let me rephrase this. If you're spot-on qualified for the job, that this may be your dream job, your forever role. But if your LinkedIn profile is not up to date, then you will not know about the job. Please think about that. We can guide you to an improved LinkedIn profile and enhanced career brand. Now, in the past, LinkedIn profiles were never top of mind in the world of career brand management for many, many managers and executives. But the combination of technology and automation is dramatically changing this in ways that we are only beginning to appreciate. You can no longer ignore the critical importance. You just can't ignore the critical importance of LinkedIn and similar online networking platforms. You must keep your LinkedIn profile up to date with your jobs and accomplishments, and with additional content that will help the recruiting automation and ultimately the recruiters find you. Now, this is as important as doing a good job with your job. This is as important of doing a good job with your job. So we're going to be producing additional content on this critical subject in the coming weeks. So watch for posts here, and in Got a Minute, our daily 60-second career management and job search video. It's available on LinkedIn and on YouTube. You can sign up at johngself.com. It'll be delivered to your morning email at 8 a.m. You just click the link at the top of the home page. Now, here are the takeaways from the first section of today's Lunch and Learn. 1, update your LinkedIn profile and use a great personality headshot. That's a photo, preferably taken by a professional, that shows your smile and shows something about you that's engaging. It needs to be professional. It needs to be engaging, because the quality of your photo can literally make the difference. If a recruiter is manually going through LinkedIn profiles, that will get them to stop more. And if you don't have a profile, you are absolutely wasting your time with LinkedIn. You are 6 times more likely to get a contact connection or a recruiter connection if you have a photo. Second, convert your about section to a first person narratives. Recruiters today prefer that approach. 3, understand your value and then sell it. Don't expect recruiters to plow through your information and to figure it out on their own. Sell your value, but in a way that emphasizes that you are being helpful, not a high-pressured selling used car salesperson. You will be more successful selling yourself by being helpful versus trying to convince somebody that you're the right person for the job. 4, update your profile on a regular basis. 5, use a headline that emphasizes your value, not your job title, but your value. Keep the link to about 40 to 45 characters so that it won't be truncated when you post a news article or a congratulations or any message online. You want that full headline to show. So you can experiment by writing a new headline and then posting something to see if it's truncated. That truncated, for those of you who don't know, that's something that didn't finish and it just has ... You don't really want that, because that means the recruiter or somebody looking to connect with you has to go up and click the profile to find the whole headline. Don't make them do work they don't need to do. Write a headline that sells your value, but it falls within the count parameters so that you don't have a truncated headline. Okay? You want to also post regularly using original content, as well as news articles and things that you find interesting and helpful about your profession, your industry. That's a way to reach out and be seen by industry-specific and corporate recruiters. So you need to post regularly. I argue it needs to be 2 to 4 times a week. The best times of the week to post are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, around 8:30 a.m. local time. So, I mean, there's that science is changing. Everybody's got an opinion. That's when I have the most success. So it's important that you have a regular engagement with your LinkedIn profile. You really need to really build your brand on LinkedIn, because this is going to be such a critical source of candidate sourcing in the future. And there will be people that get hired because they had great LinkedIn profiles and the computer saw them and liked it. Okay? You can't sit back and not do anything with your profile for a year, and then, quite frankly, if you get upset, that you're not getting phone calls or you're not getting access to the best jobs, it's your fault. In the old days when we had, and we still do this, in professional associations, a lot of those associations have directory of their members with contact information, emails, telephone numbers, etc. And guess what? Recruiters that do work in those areas will join that association so they can get access to that information. If you don't keep that up to date, you're not going to get any calls either. So it's the same principle, okay? Keep your professional association information up to date, but also that's just contact information. But LinkedIn is a way to contact you, but it is also a way to highlight your value. And having that, understanding your value and highlighting your value is absolutely, absolutely key for you. As I said, we're going to have more information for you regarding a LinkedIn strategy for your success in an upcoming online course. So watch for the announcement and understand our courses are very, very economically priced. Now, our second topic, beware of the knowledge explosion. Now, while there's good news that this has increased the flow of knowledge and it will probably produce a cure for cancer and other diseases, the bad news is that this expansion of information data and automated artificial intelligence that what's going to take to understand this and process all this information, the same automation, the same technology is going to be used to automate jobs. And sadly, this is going to be proof positive that there is such a thing as the law of unintended consequences. With all this information, metadata, with the new computer system programs that are designed to understand and process that data and extract usable information, you're also going to have the same technology used to automate jobs. Now, here's some context how the knowledge explosion is impacting the field of medicine and healthcare. Medical knowledge in 1950 doubled every 50 years. By 1980, it was doubling every 7 years. By 2010, medical knowledge was doubling every 3.5 years. Today, the estimates are it is doubling every 73 days. Now, this phenomena is not limited to medicine or the science of healthcare. It can be found in multiple other disciplines. So much so that we are developing new types of computer programs to help us manage this fire hose flow of data and actionable information. So if we do not continue to enhance these various types of automated programs, we're going to fall behind globally, including to our geopolitical competitors. So we must maintain an aggressive posture in developing these programs, even though it's going to have a downside on a portion of our economy. Just like everything else, just like all the changes from the agrarian time to the Industrial Revolution to the service technology, people's jobs were displaced. And there's no question that the information explosion will lead to life-saving and life-enhancing medical cures. There is no question about that. It'll stimulate new technological innovations that will enhance connectivity and produce a surge of new economic growth. But for every positive action, there will be a disruption with negative implications and consequences. The first people to fall victim to this disruption will be the workers who today are in retail sales, cashiers, food and beverage workers, and office clerical workers, to highlight the top 4 most threatened job categories according to an Oxford research study on automation. In the U.S. alone, millions who have jobs in these 4 classifications will lose their jobs over the next 5 to 7 years as a result of this necessary automation. Now, there are dozens and dozens of other job categories that will be impacted as well. Within the next 10 years, according to McKinsey Global Research Study, this information explosion will drive changes that will eliminate millions of white-collar jobs in areas such as finance, the law, medicine, technology, manufacturing, construction, and service industries. So what does this mean for you? If you are within 5 to 7 years of retirement, you will begin to see more automation related to layoffs, but you can probably finish your career without an excessive threat to this type of job disruption. But if you are more than 10 years from retirement, and that is an overwhelming majority of you, you must take an entirely different approach, because the chances that you will experience a major career disruption will increase with the passing of every month. Now, as I've shared with you in past, that McKinsey study that I just mentioned a minute ago, the impact on clerical workers worldwide will be $1 trillion within 10 years. That means that workers, particularly those in careers, disciplines that are vulnerable to AI-driven automation, must begin to think more intentionally about their careers and how they will respond. There are going to be other market threats as well. So, what does this phrase, think intentionally about their careers and how they will respond, really mean? Well, first, you must be more strategic in terms of thinking about your future. You know, that old career advice, don't panic. If you're talented and a hard worker, something will always work out. That is rapidly becoming irrelevant. Technology and markets that have dramatically realigned are making it impossible for that old truth to be of much value today. And we saw this begin to occur in the mid-1970s in the Rust Belt and in Appalachia and in the mill towns along the East Coast, with declines in manufacturing and mining. And in the 1980s, the pace of that disruptive change accelerated. By the early 1990s, the horrendous change, the horrendous damage that those changes produced was pretty apparent. People who always thought they would have a job and a pension found themselves unemployed, and many depended on government programs to feed their families. And many pension plans for companies that went out of business had to be rescued by the federal government. But even then, these workers found themselves without a job and without much hope, barely scraping by each month. More often than not, their whole life was tied to the town and where they lived and grew up and worked, and a town with few jobs. But many stayed because that's all they knew. Resistance to change was deeply embedded in their DNA. It was inconceivable for them to relocate, even with the incentive that they could likely find a better job if they did. Today, many of the worst impacted communities in Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania, for example, and there are other areas, the job market disruption is visible in vacant storefronts, dilapidated housing, empty schools, abandoned hospitals, and streets littered with despair. So you're now facing a scenario in job markets with some striking parallels to the decline in Appalachia and the Rust Belt, except these disruptions will be nationwide. Now, you cannot afford to sit back and rationalize that this is never going to happen to me, because it can and it will. Not necessarily next week, not even next month, not even next year, but certainly within the next 5 to 10 years. And so if you've got more than 10 years to go before you can retire, it's time to get ahead of the curve. You must become more engaged in planning for your future, much in the way a corporation plans for its future based on dynamically changing market conditions. You are the CEO of you, and you are responsible for avoiding career disruptions that will adversely impact your family. Now, we can serve as your guide using a combination of online, on-demand, and live video coaching sessions. To learn more or to arrange a call, there's no obligation, and there's not going to be a hard sell. I believe that I really believe in the philosophy that I'm not here to convince, but here to help. So I hope you'll visit John G. Self and scroll to the bottom of the homepage and click the schedule a call with John. I promise you will benefit from our call without all the hassles of a hard sell. I want to help you ignite your career and enhance your earnings. So check out our career management and job search courses at johngself.com and click that link and schedule a call. Now, here are my takeaways for this section. The knowledge explosion brings the promise of life-saving and life-enhancing changes. But there are downsides, and there's some serious downsides with the development of AI-powered automation. Millions of jobs are going to be wiped out as machines take over these jobs with greater efficiency and lower costs. So if you're in a job that can be automated, now is the time to prepare for this kind of epic transformation. But you can't do it if you remain in your comfort zone. That's not a viable option for continued happiness and financial security. And finally, I hope you will pardon the use of this hackneyed phrase, but it is absolutely true. Those who fail to plan to fail. Now, in the past, not having a career plan was not really limiting, but today, with the knowledge explosion and rapidly expanding technology and changing job market conditions, that old school career planning paradigm is a ticket to a major costly career derailment. There are practical and cost-effective steps that you can take today to help you be prepared. I think you're worth the investment for your career and for your future financial security. So that's what we have for the first two parts today. We still have a few minutes, so let me take some questions that have come in. Okay, this one from our friends at Quora. I had a job interview and the hiring manager had me waiting for 1 hour without acknowledging me. I went to the receptionist and declined the job. The boss called me and was very angry. I told him that my time was just as valuable as his. Was I wrong? Absolutely not. Let me tell you something. The only thing that's worse than unprepared job applicants are arrogant, self-important slugs that call themselves managers or executives. Having someone you kept out there without communicating with you, there may have been a crisis, and that's understandable, okay? But somebody should have come out and said, look, something's happened. He's going to be tied up. We want you to stay if possible, but we understand and can reschedule, okay? But not communicating with an applicant is a sign of what kind of culture that company operates within and what kind of boss you'd be working for. You were perfectly justified in the actions you took. And I think, unfortunately, that kind of appalling employment behavior is really pretty terrible. Okay, let's see. There's some other questions here. Thank you, Jennifer. Do all managers hire the worst candidates? That sounds like somebody who didn't get a job and felt like they should have. Listen, job applicants come and they bring their baggage with them and they bring their strengths and weaknesses, and managers have the same weaknesses, but they also have something called biases, and sometimes those biases will lead them to hiring not the best applicant. Managers they're human beings. They've got their fears and their insecurities like everybody else, and I've seen managers go out of their way to hire people that knew what they were doing but who were not going to challenge them, and because they didn't want to be challenged. So that leads to bad employment decisions. It happens more often than not. There's a survey that said that 40% of all the people recruited from outside an organization are gone within 18 months. And that's a reflection of bad hiring, bad recruiting. But that does happen. But when you deal with people, you're going to have biases and they're going to do things that are kind of crazy. Okay, can companies reject applicants without interviewing them? If so, why would they do that? Well, there are a lot of people that don't understand the employment and recruiting process. We need to spend more time on that later. But let me give you the short answer here. Usually there's one job, and usually there are dozens and dozens of applicants. One came up the other day. A really high-flying company, a national company, was looking for a chief communications officer for internal communications for their thousands of employees. Within 9 minutes, there were 200 applicants. So they can't interview 200 people. So just apply that to whether you're applying for an hourly job, a supervisory job, management job. They're going to interview only the best qualified people. And that may be a decision made by the computer, and increasingly it is. It may not always be accurate, but it is what it is. I hate to use that phrase, but that's kind of accurate. And it's not going to change. Hopefully it's going to get better, and they're making progress. But the systems are only as good as the algorithms that are programmed into them to reflect the job descriptions that are posted. Okay, what if the hiring manager says something you disagree with or talks about a standard that is out of date? How do you correct them without sounding confrontational? That's a great question. You might just say something very innocuous. That's interesting. When we got the update on the change in that area, here's what we did at our company to adopt the new changes. Don't say they're wrong. Don't say, oh, that's out of date information. Be helpful Don't be confrontational. So there are ways to word an answer that is not going to offend the employer. And again, if they say something is blatantly wrong, you need to stop and think, okay, is this is this somebody I really want to work for if they're that out of date? And sometimes you have to take a job because you need it and you got to support your family and pay your bills. And so you have to do things in an interview that helps you get that position and kind of get the financial stability going. And then you can kind of sort it out later. Sometimes you literally have to do it that way. But, there are ways to answer questions on the front end where you can say, oh, great, that's interesting. When we got the update on the changes in our company, the regulatory changes in our company, we did X, Y, and Z, and it was very successful, and I played a role in helping implement that. Let's see. Here's a comment. I hear this more and more. I do a lot of work with senior executives and physicians, and one guy said he talked to several people. He's going to be retiring in 5 years. He talked to several people who had just retired. They had all these plans. They were going to fish, travel, and golf, and see their grandkids, and do the honeydew things, and just take care of everything they'd never been able to take care of. Except that wasn't a list of tasks or activities that was going to extend for 10 or 15 years. And in the third or fourth month, they had seen the kids. They had taken the trips they wanted to take. They were getting tired of playing as much golf as they thought when they couldn't play it every day, they wanted to play every day, but when they could, not so much. So it was really interesting that they started having problems. They were getting depressed. They didn't have enough to do, and they were spending more time on the internet. God knows doing what, planning trips, I guess, or looking for a new golf course to play at. But let me say this: if you're 5 years away from retirement, you need to be thinking now about activities that will keep you busy. My wife, when I was thinking about stopping my executive search practice because I just was sick and tired of travel, her comment was, I didn't marry you to have lunch every day. So I took that as a hint that I needed to create something that would keep me busy and that I would enjoy doing. And working out of a home studio and doing career coaching was my response. Now, I still work full time, but I have flexibility to do the things I want to do because a lot of our stuff is online. So I can take a trip for 3 or 4 days and just take care of my programming in advance and automate it, and it goes out and I don't have to be here. But if you don't have an interest like I did, if you're a physician, you may want to volunteer at a clinic. If you're a CPA, you may, serve as a part-time mentor for a new business startup. There, in most every community of any size, they're incubators for new businesses. And if you have that experience, you can do things like this. You can do some part-time work and consulting. Or serving as an interim accountant or an interim CFO. But there are things, if you don't want to get into that level of structure, you can do volunteer work. But you have to plan in advance. You have to build your connections. Somebody said, oh my God, you're talking about networking for retirement? Yes, I am. That's exactly what you have to do. Now, not a lot of doctors, when they retire from medicine, they don't want to continue in that profession. And so, but there are other things they can do as well. And they have interest. And so, but it's really not something that you just walk out of your office on the last day after you've had the cake and punch and everybody's wished you well. If you got to have a retirement plan just like you have a career plan. So, okay, I think we have a few more questions. We'll hold those over for next time. I hope you'll join us next week for Lunch and Learn at 11:30 a.m. This will be posted with some supporting information tomorrow afternoon. Then if you would like to get more information, we will be live tonight on TikTok at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, reviewing some of this same information. So thanks for watching. I hope you have a great rest of the day and a great weekend.